It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because in space no one can hear you speak Japanese, but in Japan no one gives you space. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
Mark Bailey and Steve Howard on Talk Funny. We were just talking about that doing comedy on stage, talking about our lovely wives. It's much cheaper than therapy, because therapy is just having the same arguments, but now in public, that you have at home.
And you're paying $100 an hour.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about some meta-comic issues. We talked about comic voice. Let's do that.
Okay.
So in John Vorhaus's book, he does talk about comic voice, and it's very important. It's like, who are you? Are you the angry comic? And I knew Steve at first he wasn't an angry comic, but he's married, so now we're all angry comics. But I'm an angry comic, and I do the angry comic thing. But you can also do the dweeb. There's the dweeb vantage point. What's your vantage point? So one thing Steve Martin taught me is there's two kinds of vantage points for comedy, especially for movies. If you watch comedy movies or any movie, you realize there's the sane guy in an insane world, or the insane guy in a sane world. Jim Carrey is always the insane guy in the sane world.
Right.
Bruce Willis is the sane guy in an insane world. Robin Williams has done both. But comics also do that. So Emo Phillips, he's a dweeby comic, and those are more suited for one-liners. Stephen Wright has his crazy fizzy hair and does one-liners. But if you're in a suit and tie and you do one-liners, it's kind of weird because you look like Bob Hope, and they expect Bob Hope. He does stories. So your vantage point is, are you the crazy comic and everyone's reacting to you, which is probably what I do. By the end, I've had fans ask me later, and they're like, when you smashed the violin, I really thought you had lost your mind. I said, well, I succeeded. That's what I wanted you to think. But did you? I said, dun, 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 sequel. You don't know? Because that's what I want you to think. I've lost it. That I actually had a set that I was going to do, but I got on a tangent about the wife, and it ended up smashing a Stradivarius that I have to turn into the Nagoya Museum of Music, which doesn't exist, which I made up, which I pre-smashed the violin, and I almost went to jail for it because they thought I was destroying. I mean, Japanese people were coming up to me like, how are you going to take this back to the museum now? You don't get comedy! They're like, I thought you lost your mind. Well, that's what I wanted.
When Mark takes a knee, it means he's not being serious.
So that's what I wanted. But other people want to be the... Jerry Seinfeld's a perfect example.
Yeah.
What's with the tickets? What's with Chicken McNuggets? What's with Halloween? He's sane. Yeah. Everybody else is crazy. And I prefer Sam Kinnison's. I prefer the... Bob Goldthwait's.
Yeah.
I prefer them.
Yeah.
They're insane. And you don't know if they are insane or not. You really don't know.
Yeah.
That's entertaining for me, and I identify with that. How about you? What do you think?
Well, I was going to ask you a question because I'm a comedian that kind of feels like he recently found his voice. So when did you feel like you found your voice?
So I had two different voices. When I started in the 80s, I was a smart-ass, young, thin, unmarried kid. And in the 80s, we were doing more ethnic jokes because it was New York.
Yeah.
So I would do a joke about, I think people have, used this since then, but I did it first. In the 80s, I'll say, the farmer's market. I'm not saying there's a lot of Asians there, but I dropped my keys and 4 Vietnamese guys came running. Ting, chang, pong, tong, pong, tong. Right, you can do those jokes then. And
Canceled.
I'd say, I'm not saying there's a lot of gay people in my neighborhood, but they're having a meeting next week. It's at Madison Square Garden. So it was just kind of ironic, more Seinfeld, more Jewy.
Yeah. They can't cancel you for saying Jewy.
Yeah. And more puns. Larry Miller, I played with him a lot, so we both did a lot of puns, kind of Bob Saget-ish.
Oh, okay.
So Bob Saget would say, he would do the award show, he'd say, these are the nominees. And then touch his knees and go, these are my knees. And he'd say something like, my girlfriend, she's 4 feet tall and nuts over her. It's just a lot of puns.
Yeah.
So puns were a lot more welcome in the 80s. When I was on radio, until 2010. And I started to get darker and darker and darker because I was married. And then my kids got older. And as we've talked off Mike, the kids, they used to think Daddy can do everything. It's like, Daddy's useless. When they get to be 13. And even my jokes on radio got darker and darker. It's like... that was a song called Suicide, but I Can Dream, Can't I? And I just do these and throw this off. So by the time I went back, I did comedy here first in Nagoya and Osaka back in 93 and 95. By now, I'm married.
Yeah.
it got really dark.
Oh, okay.
So my comic voice then became the angry comic. So my voice changed because you have a mortgage, you have kids that hate you, you have a lot of problems. I didn't have any problems in the 80s. I was a smartass.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you idiots that get married and you get divorced and you hate your life. You guys are schmucks. Whoa. Mark, let's put you in a time machine. This is your life. You're going to make jokes about wife and onions in 30 years. So that's how my voice changed. How about you?
Well, as I said, I feel like I've just recently maybe found my voice. But one thing, the show we did a few shows ago, and that one, when I was on stage, and I didn't even notice it, but Tim.
What show is this?
It was at Coat of Arms in July, with Evans.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a few months ago now. Yeah.
But one thing, like I didn't even notice it, but Tim Linnane came up to me after my set, and he said, that was weird because you were like walking around on stage. He said, you never do that. You usually just stand there like stiff as a board, hunched over. And he said, you looked really, really comfortable. And I said, yeah, I felt like everything was really flowing and I could kind of, connect with the audience a little bit. And it really felt great. So that's why I feel like maybe I've kind of found my voice now.
Yeah, when you feel comfortable, if you don't own a car, you can't make jokes about driving. You have to talk about your wife or whatever you're living. And Gore Vidal, one of my favorite quotes from him, he said, you're actually in a prison. The artist is in a prison, but he doesn't know he's in a prison. He thinks everybody's in a prison. So when he looks out the window and describes things from his prison, which is vantage point in comedy speak, other people think it's funny because they're not in a prison and they realize he's in a prison. Yeah. But he doesn't realize that. And he said, that's art. That's comedy. That's movies, that's writing, that's poetry, that's music. Yeah. So when I get up and talk about how horrible my life is with being married, and people are like, but I'm married and I'm happy. I don't understand. What's the matter with this guy? Oh, he's in a prison of his own mind. But that's where your art comes from. Your art comes from the tension of trying to shout from the prison and telling people, no, you're like me. No, we're not. We're not. That's what's funny. Yeah. And so in the 80s, I didn't have any problems.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was making $200,000 a year. I had a great radio job. I had a great speechwriting job. I was getting laid. I had no problems. How can I be funny? I don't have any tapes, but Logan had a tape, and he sent me one, and I lost it. I had no tension. Imagine if Sam Kinnison was happily married. How entertaining would that be? Yeah. Imagine if Lenny Bruce had no problems with the law.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Hemingway said, writing is easy. All you do is sit down and cut yourself and bleed or something like that.
Yeah, so I really like that Gore Vidal quote, which is that Bob Dylan thought that he was just saying what everybody thought. But people are like, this guy thinks a lot about freedom and oppression, and this guy has a weird voice. And he actually thought that we want to hear that. Let's hear some more. So that's what art is. But your comic voice, it can change, and the more dire circumstances you find you are in, knock on wood, but in my experience, the funnier you get, the more material you get.
Well, you're asking me, I just realized, because when I started out, I did my whole, my Bigfoot routine, which actually was really about being a frustrated writer, and now I'm doing a lot more stuff about marriage and having children, a teenager, and different things, so I think that my comic voice has also changed too because I have new pain in my life.
Yeah, you have a good bit I really like. I won't do it here, but about the urinal and the algorithm of how close you are to achieving your dream and how far you are from the urinal and how far your wife wants you to be from your dream. It's complicated. I can't do it justice, but you don't have to do it here. It's really funny because it's true. Yeah. And so there are other people with misery, and then they will identify with you. Yeah. But in the 80s, I'm making a lot of money. I got a lot of chicks. I got a nice car. I live in Manhattan. I got a radio job. So what about those chicken McNuggets, man? What about that? I wasn't upset about anything. Yeah. There's no art. Right. Where's the misery? Where's the tension? Truth and tension, that's comedy. So you talk about something that's true. My wife hates me. I guess I'm going to be with her forever. Opposites don't attract, actually. Mark Norman had a good comeback when somebody heckled him. Some nurse was heckling him, and he goes, what are you? She goes, I'm a Capricorn. And he goes, what is he? She goes, he's a Taurus. He goes, so Taurus people are nice, right? Because opposites attract. That's a really good line. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So your comic voice will change, but like Tim was getting stopped by the police a lot, and so was I. And I said, just write about it. Write. Get it out of your system.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do? Punch a police officer? I don't think you're going to do that. And, take it out on your wife? No. Just write.
I think you said it. I might be confusing you with something Joe Rogan said, but I remember you were talking about Louis C.K., and you said he didn't really become a great comedian until he started talking about his kids and his marriage. Before that, he was just kind of a, middle-of-the-road comic, but once he actually started opening up about his kids and also the problems he was having with his wife at that time, that's when his comedy really became fantastic.
Yeah, one of his NG breakout moments was when he started. It was anti-PC to say, my kids are idiots. You couldn't say that.
Yeah.
That's what he would come out and say. You go, my daughter's 5. She'd go, it's a truck, Daddy, it's a truck. It's like, yeah, Einstein, it's a truck. Let's get in the car. It's a truck, Daddy. And, he'd say, my daughters are effing idiots. They're 8 and 5. Don't worry, they'll be older. It'll be a PC eventually, but that, he was the first one that I heard do that.
Okay, then it was you that said that to me.
Yeah. And once you become a dad, you realize these moments. It's like, that's a bridge, Daddy. That's a bridge. That's a bridge. Yeah, we're 10 minutes late for the doctor's appointment. It's a bridge. I know it's an effing bridge. Shut up. You're a mean daddy. I'm going to write about you when I get older. It's an effing bridge. It's a bridge. It's a bridge. It's like, that's blue. That's red. That's a Louis C.K. joke. He goes, Daddy, that's blue. Daddy, that's red. He goes, come on, Captain Obvious. You're late for school. It's funny because as a dad, you know that you can't say that.
Right.
But you want to.
Yeah.
But you're stifled. So he says it for you. That's the tension.
Yeah.
That's the truth and the tension. Patrice Oneal was just, I think I mentioned before, David Lucas, I think he might be reincarnated Patrice Oneal.
Yeah.
Patrice Oneal, he was not afraid to insult the ladies.
Yeah.
And just amazing, what he could get away with.
Yeah.
And he has a real quick one where he says, so women, if you had a horrible car accident and your vagina was destroyed, how would you still keep your men? And they're going like, I would give oral, I would give anal, blah, blah, I'd get a boob job, blah, blah. And he goes, now, remember that I never called you whores, but all of you women are calling yourself whores. You appalled me with your suggestions. I never suggested. I was thinking like, smile more. I was thinking like, learn how to tell a story. Learn how to drive.
I heard.
Be nice to my friends.
I heard.
Rest in peace, Patrice.
Yeah. Bill Burr was telling a story about him and Patrice were in a bar, and there were these two, they were like supermodels, and I can't do the story justice, but he said basically Patrice started insulting them, insulting their looks, and he said by the end he had both of them like hanging off his arms. They were ready to do whatever.
And he was an obese, older black guy.
Right.
He died of diabetes, rest in peace, but he was amazing.
Yeah.
He had another one where he said, women can't tell stories. And some woman goes, that's not true. He goes, tell me a story. Well, that's not true. I bet you can't. And he told a story where his wife came home and she goes, Lisa. He goes, I don't know Lisa. His wife comes home and goes, you know a girl? No, I don't know her. I don't know her. No, you know Lisa. I don't know Lisa. He goes, anyway, so, no, you know Lisa. You remember that party you didn't want to go to and I made you go to it? I made you talk to that girl? Yeah, I remember that bitch. Yeah, that was Lisa. Okay, I know that bitch. All right, so what happened? Well, somebody got shot. Was it Lisa? No. Lisa and I were walking along. So, who got shot? Well, Lisa and I were walking along and we heard 2 gunshots. So who got shot? Well, actually, let me finish the story. Finish it! Yeah! So we were walking along, and then I was with Lisa, and we were talking about how she doesn't like her brother, not the gay one, but the older one that is really mean to her. The gay one is really, who got shot, bitch? So we were walking along, and we heard these 2 gunshots. So who got shot? So we don't actually, just tell me. So we don't know who got shot. So Lisa didn't get shot. No. So why did you bring her up? Because I was with her when someone got shot. But you don't know who got shot. That's not a story, bitch. That's not a story. Go back, talk to police, find out who got shot, and come back and tell me the story. And women are going, no, that never happened. He goes, it happens all the time. Guys, raise your hands. Everybody said, yeah. You can't tell stories. Learn how to tell a story. Next week, we'll be back. Steve Howard, Mark Bailey, and Talk Bunny.